dear friends. It's Carly, and welcome back to another episode of the I Learned podcast. I'm recording this the same day as the last episode, the part one on human design, Incarnation Cross. And if you haven't listened to that one, I would say that it's probably a good call to listen to episode 52 first. Before taking on this one, because in this one we are going to build on what we talked about in the last episode. But to give us a little bit of an intro to reground us into human design, basically the best definition that I've seen of human design that really helps me to just wrap my mind around what this even is, it was called the science of differentiation. So it's the idea that we as human beings, we are all the same species. We're all the same species. And with that, there are a lot of similarities. There's a lot of ways that we are the same. And then there are all of the infinite ways that we are different and unique within ourselves, that each of our souls has come forward as an individual spirit. And human design, like so many other tools that we talk about, especially on this podcast, the goal is self-awareness. So when we hear the science of differentiation, it's really understanding what makes each of us unique and what can we learn from that uniqueness that can help empower us to walk the path that our soul came to walk. And I recorded that last episode about 5 hours ago. And since then, I have continued down the rabbit hole, feeling very much like Alice in Wonderland today, diving deep down the rabbit hole for several hours. And so I've basically learned a whole bunch more on human design, and specifically the Incarnation Cross, which that was kind of the first piece to catch my eye. And I instantly noticed that there was a lot of stuff, even as part of the Incarnation Cross, that I did not understand when I talked about it last time. So what I gave last time was kind of that highest level of that Incarnation Cross piece that's listed on the chart itself. So you pull your human design chart, which is free. You only need your birthday, the time, and the location where you were born. And you can pull your human design chart. The link to get that is on the last episode. And then one of the pieces listed on the chart is called Incarnation Cross, and it lists right there for you what your Incarnation Cross is. And a quick Google will give you a few sentences about what that means. But I now know that also that Incarnation Cross is based on 4 pieces of your human design chart. The way that those 4 pieces come together is how it knows which of the 768 Incarnation Crosses is yours. So I have 6 charts that I've been looking at today, back and forth, of like people that I know their personality really well. So then looking at their human design chart, I can kind of see how it fits. And none of the 6 people have the same Incarnation Cross. And to give us a basis for that, again, this definition is pretty good. The Incarnation Cross is a powerful and influential aspect of your design, as the energies are from the position of the sun and the earth, both at your birth and 88 days before. That seems to be a thing throughout human design, the day of your birth and 88 days before. Obviously, for us humans, the earth and sun are significant energetic influences on us. I believe, this is the author of this quote, I believe from a spiritual viewpoint, our Incarnation Cross is of a design that will support our journey to carry out our life purpose. I see it as a platform to do your life's work. So that definitely made sense for my Incarnation Cross, which I shared on the last episode, is the, I think, left angle cross of education. And basically my soul's purpose, the platform for my soul's work, is to inform and educate around things that I am passionate about. which obviously makes a lot of sense since we're sitting here on my podcast called I Learned. So that's the Incarnation Cross. So I am going to break down a few of the pieces, and really the best way to listen to this episode is to have your human design chart in front of you as you're listening. I think it'll all make a whole lot more sense if you have the visual. So take a second, pause the episode if you need to, and get that. I'm going to go ahead and put the link to pull your chart on this episode too, just so that it's super easy to find. And like I said, when you go there, you need a few pieces of information and you'll immediately have your chart. So it's super easy peasy. Okay, so now that you have your chart in front of you, there are two columns on the chart. You see the graphic in the middle is a person, and it shows all of the crazy lines and numbers and all of that on the person. And on either side of the person of that diagram, there are two columns of symbols and numbers. So on the right side, there is a black column. All the numbers are in black, and that is your personality. So that is the part that it was activated at birth. And those are your more conscious resources. That's why it's called your personality. That's the part that you know. When you read those things, when we get into that part of it, like those are not shocking at all. And really the design, the left-hand side, is our destiny. It is our design. It's our subconscious energies. And those are the pieces that got imprinted 88 days before we were born. So those are the two columns on either side of your chart. And we're going to need numbers from both of those columns. So hang with me. And basically what those columns are, so each of those symbols that you see in that list, like the very top one is the symbol for the sun, and the next one is the symbol for the earth. And those are the two, the sun and the earth, that make up your Incarnation Cross, both the sun and the earth on the personality side and the sun and the earth on the design side. So those four pieces come together to make up your unique Incarnation Cross. So the sun is basically the same. If you've studied astrology, human design is a lot based on astrology. So the sun means basically the same thing in both. It is a life force. Read you just a little bit here. The sun represents vital life force energy, which makes total sense. Life as we know it on this planet would not exist without the life-giving light we get from the sun, which gates the sun touches, and I'm going to go through gates in detail here in just a second. Which gates the sun touches in our charts lets us know how, when we're living our authentic design, we're meant to shine our light in the world. So basically, those gates that are being lit up, that's going to let you know kind of how your life force is going to be expressed. In practical terms, the energy of the sun is embodied by what we do. It's the active yang to the earth's receptive yin. In traditional astrological terms, the sun represents the archetype of the father, and in human design, it is said that the sun occupies gates and channels where we may have inherited gifts and lessons from our fathers. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I haven't given that a whole lot of thought just yet. And then the earth, to contrast to that, the earth is for grounding and balance. It's through our gates that work with the energy of the earth that we bring to form the gifts and lessons we learn through the sun. Earth energy is all about grounding and balance. The energies we get from the sun and the earth are always operating together, and they are opposite each other on the mandala, the super complex version of the body graph. When you get into the picture form, it's a lot to take in, but basically the sun and the earth energies are working together. Just as the sun is the father archetype, the earth is the mother archetype, the yin to the sun's yang. and really helps to form the backbone and stabilizing force in our charts. So between those two, the sun is our life force, it's our unique individuality, and the earth says a lot about how we bring our unique life force into being in the physical. So that's kind of those two forces. So gates, really quickly. So if you look at the diagram, there are 9 energy centers. So most of them are shaped like a square, some of them are shaped like a triangle. Those 9 big boxes on the chart, those are the energy centers, and all of those boxes, they have a bunch of numbers on them. Each number is its own gate. So the gate is literally the gate. It's a gate into that energy center. So each energy center has multiple gates, multiple ways that you can get in there. So again, when you look at how many gates there are, I think, what did it say? There's 64 gates total. And that only a maximum of 26 can be activated by, how did it call it? The cosmic program, which was basically like gates get activated by where each planet and each luminary, the sun and the moon are luminaries, where all of that was in the sky at the time that you were born, and the design part, the 88 days prior to when you were born. So that's a lot. That's a lot of ways that our energy can be wired by which gates are activated. And again, all of that depends on where the planets were in the sky when you made your entry. So a gate is a door belonging to a center, those energy centers. There's 64 gates. Gates are potentials, energies, intelligences, and resources. Since a gate is an electromagnetic field, there is always involved with it a deep attraction and repulsion mechanism. I found that to be really interesting because basically with these gates, the ones that we have activated, it's not a cut and dry, this is what it looks like. It's just like law of attraction. It depends on your vibration. When you're in a good mood, here's what the gate looks like. When you're in a bad mood, the gate looks very different. So it's like that. It's like one more way that we're being reinforced that our vibration matters. Our mood matters a lot to understand the full range of potential that we are capable of. The gates, let's see. So there are lines coming off those gates. And basically there's red lines coming off some gates, there's black lines coming off some gates, and then some of the lines are red and black, and they have both on there. And so the red lines are coming from your design gates, those planets that activated 88 days before you were born. Those are the red ones. So any red lines that you see on your chart, those are those subconscious energies. So any of the gates touching a red line would be more subconscious. As you looked into it, if you were to research that gate, it would be subconscious. If it has a black line coming off of it, it's more conscious. It's part of your personality. And that means that the black lines were the things that were activated the day you were born. And then the ones that have red and black, that means that there was a planet at that exact gate 88 days before you were born and the day you were born. So all of us have at least one of those. And I won't get into too much detail on why that is, but at least one time in your chart, you're going to see that there's a red and black line, and potentially more of those where it's like, and it's not red on one end and black on the other end. It's like red and black little stripes where the whole line is both red and black, and it just changes back and forth. So those are the gates. They are doorways into each energy center. And based on which gates you have activated, that's how it knows which energy centers for you are the ones that you're really using. Which we're not going to get into energy centers on this episode, but it's coming soon because that was by far the most fascinating piece of all of this after I've spent all day now learning about it. The energy centers, oh my goodness, they are fascinating. So, we are officially ready to get back into the Incarnation Cross. We've laid the framework. So, the Incarnation Cross, it is one of those pieces that is listed. If you download your chart, it's listed right at the top. And it lists the actual Incarnation Cross itself. So, like in my case, it says left angle cross of education. And then in parentheses, it has 4 numbers. That's true for everybody. You're going to find 4 numbers after your Incarnation Cross. And this is where I really wanted to make part 2 of this story, because if you just Google left angle cross of education, I noticed some of them have articles where you can read like in depth about that Incarnation Cross, and mine really didn't have a whole lot to be found, but it did say that you can look at basically those 4 gates that make up your Incarnation Cross and understand each gate individually and get a more comprehensive picture. Some of the Incarnation Crosses, though, if you Google them, there's like articles out there where they've written whole in-depth articles about that Incarnation Cross, which, as we said, that's like a foundation to do your soul's work. So it is a very interesting piece of the human design. But those 4 numbers afterwards, so those are referring to 4 gates in your chart that are activated. The first 2 numbers are referencing on the personality side, so that black column, those numbers correspond to where the sun and the earth were at the time of your birth. That personality column is the time of your birth. The second 2 numbers are for the left column. They are referring to, under the design column, where the sun and the earth were 88 days before your birth. So that's where those 4 numbers come from. It's the sun and the earth on both the right and the left columns. So, based on those 4 numbers, that is the unique combination that lets it know which Incarnation Cross is yours. So, of course, I wanted to know, like individually for all of these different gates, what does it all mean? What is the point of this? So, there are the sun personality gate. So like when you get on that right column that's titled personality, your sun gate is the top one, the earth gate is the second one, and then you get on the other side for the design, and there's the sun gate and then the earth gate. So those numbers that are listed, that is the gate. That's the number of the gate. And there's 64 of them, or whatever we said. So I'm going to go through my example just because I think it's always interesting when there's a real example. And especially if you guys have been listening to my podcast, I think it is going to make a lot of sense with how this does describe me and the conversations that we've already had around my life's work, and how this does just add one more piece to the puzzle. So my first gate on the personality side is number 12. And gate 12 is the gate of caution. And basically, I'm going to read some things that all you have to do is like, so gate 12, I want to know about gate 12. So I Googled gate 12 human design, and there's all kinds of things that you can read about that will tell you what gate 12 is all about. And so yeah, I'm going to read you a little bit about that. So the articulate, mutative, and moody voice of the individual is restrained in gate 12 by a natural caution. This caution keeps us silent until our mood tells us that we really do have something to say, as well as a unique, transformative way of saying it. The vocal vibration or tone of our voice speaks louder than our choice of words. Those who carry this gate have their greatest impact on others as a stranger of consequence. Like a performer, they translate and creatively express the joys and sorrows of loving and living, and then withdraw. Impeccable timing maximizes the potential impact we can have on social and cultural norms and on our way of being with each other in the world. So that is really interesting. All of that that basically it talks about like you need to wait until you feel like saying something to have the best impact. Otherwise, if you speak when you don't feel like it, people aren't going to hear you, they'll get offended, on and on and on. That basically it's just not going to work. So don't force it. The gate of caution is all about timing and telling you when it's the right time to move forward. So I thought that was really interesting. The next gate, which is where my earth was at the time of my birth, was gate 11. They're not always side by side, just sometimes. Actually, I don't know that now that I said it. Mine are side by side. Those are not side by side. Those are definitely not side by side. Okay, so it's not always side by side. So gate 11 is the gate of ideas. Ideas are concepts designed to express what has been sensed. Those who carry this gate seek the ideas of others to stimulate their own reflections and enjoy stimulating others with their ideas. Ideas reach the throat center as verbal expressions, not as manifestations of action, and they are designed simply to be reflected upon, which is so true. It goes on to talk about, like, basically you're not trying to solve the problem. You're just trying to come up with ideas and reflections and interesting points and things to learn. And like really the whole thing about this one is that there is no final destination that you're really trying to get. It's ideation for the sake of ideation because it's fun. And of course, like that I feel like suits me very well. And then over on the left side, so the last two numbers, my son, 88 days before I was born, was at gate 25. And gate 25 is, I don't remember the name of this one. Gate 25, human design, is the gate of innocence, the gate of the spirit of the self, or the spiritual warrior, which all caught my attention. Thought that was pretty cool. Okay, so the love of gate 25 flows out of fully accepting and living surrendered to one's form. A gate of the higher self, its pivotal role is to turn people toward individuation. I basically get a sense of self-acceptance is key here. The mystical potential of this love is transcendent and universal, and our spirit innocence is always being tested. We have the capacity to meet these initiations from life like a spiritual warrior, fired up and ready to compete for our spirit, our individuality, no matter what the circumstance. Then, when we meet life's initiating challenges, we will be able to land on our feet and deepen our innocence into a wisdom that can empower others on their own journey. We may emerge a bit wounded from such initiations, but our ultimate triumph and survival enriches our spirit and the spirit of those around us. The result is that we are alive with the wonder, the love of being. I absolutely adore that. And I feel like, what else is this podcast if not telling my stories of being slightly wounded but ultimately triumphing? Is that, I don't know that that's a word, but that's basically what I mean, so that's good enough. And how it said, the love of gate 25 flows out of fully accepting and living surrendered to one's form. So it's like ultimate self-acceptance, that you work to just allow whoever you are to be, and don't try to be something that you're different, and just let yourself be good enough. Surrender to the idea that yourself is good enough. So I definitely loved that as far as like self-love is concerned. And then my last one, which is where the earth was 88 days before I was born, is gate 46. The 46th gate is focused on the quality of life we experience in a physical body. It expresses the love of the body and the sensual honoring of it as a temple in which we are always in the right place at the right time. Whether we succeed or fail is dependent on the determination of our higher selves. The lessons we learn and the wisdom we share with others is derived from our determination, dedication, and absorption in the experience as we are living it. The experience of the nature of ourselves in interaction with others is a deeply spiritual process and can only be evaluated when the cycle is complete. Yeah, that's basically it. And this one I didn't say, but gate 46 is the gate of pushing upward. It's the gate of the determination of the self. The body is the temple. So that one also very much resonates as far as the part where it talks about the lessons we learn and the wisdom we share with others is derived from our determination, dedication, and absorption in the experiences we are living it, which is absolutely true. Especially like, a couple episodes ago talking about where the whole like Zoom meeting thing at the board I was sitting on, where they voted, they wanted me to join the meeting in person, and I chose to resign instead. And that experience was fascinating to get to live through, to get to observe them, to observe myself, to observe the energy that was with me afterwards, to reflect on what was said and the deeper meaning behind everything. There is I'm basically engrossed in my life, like trying to learn every drop I can out of every experience I have, which, looking at my human design is basically how I'm wired. So that is all very cool. So those are those 4 gates, and those are the 4 individual pieces that come together to give me the, to give me the left angle cross of education. And the description that I read on the last episode of that was, you are here to educate by way of the lecture. Your style is not really about sharing, but more about expounding to the masses who are ready to hear your message. When living within your type and strategy, you will find an audience who is open and receptive to hear what you have to say. You are here to deliver the word in whatever field that you happen to have a passion for. And as I read more of my human design stuff, like I said, I'm going to come back with episodes on each individual piece because I'm just like absolutely fascinated by all of this. But what I have a passion for is self-care and boundaries and self-love and self-acceptance and self-actualization. And these are goals that I have for myself, but the more I reach them for myself, the more passionate I am about sharing any knowledge that I have that could ever inspire anyone to reach for any of these goals for themselves. Like if somebody loved themselves even one tiny bit more because of something that I said, I feel like I'm doing my soul's work. That's what I'm here for, is to help people accept themselves and love themselves. And not through any kind of direct means. Like, as you see, like none of this is about like getting in your life with you and solving your problems for you. It's about me being in my life and witnessing what goes on in my life and taking my time with my experiences. And then, going back to that very first gate, the gate of caution, when I feel like it's time, when I feel quote unquote ready, then it's time to say something. It's time to share the message. It's time to share what I've learned. And that is absolutely how I've set up this podcast. I only record when I feel like it. That's why sometimes there's an episode every day or even 2 a day. And then I'll go 2 months and not record anything because I don't feel like it. I said the last time I talked about that was like, I'm in a part of the process that doesn't allow for verbal expression. Yeah, that's basically how I put it, because I'm doing those other things where I'm observing my life and learning from my life, and how it said, the experience of the nature of ourselves in interaction with others is deeply spiritual process and can only be evaluated when the cycle is complete. So like those couple months that I didn't record an episode because I was hibernating, which I talked about on an episode here recently. Basically, I was evaluating the end of a couple of cycles. Like, I ghosted my friend at the end of last year, and I was still very much in the middle of processing that. And then my grandma died. And so I hibernated for 3.5 months because, like this says, you can only evaluate what happened when the cycle is complete. When the relationship is over, then you can understand what went down and how it went down and how it impacted you and what are you going to take away from it. And so it took me a 3.5 month hibernation to really integrate the end of the cycle with that friend and the end of the cycle with my grandma in physical form. So that gate 46 process of like really learning from my own experience is not to be taken lightly. Like, that's absolutely a part of the process. And so when I come in here and I make episodes, it's the sharing my knowledge and what I've learned, and that's the part of the process that allows for verbal expression because I feel in the mood to do that. I feel ready to do that. And then other times I'm learning myself. I'm still in the middle of trying to figure out what am I supposed to learn from this experience. And how do I make peace with this experience? How do I love myself through this experience? Like, sometimes I don't know. I don't know yet the answer to that question. And so when I'm in that space, I'm not speaking. I'm hibernating and I'm figuring it out. And as soon as I figure it out, y'all will be the first to know. So when I'm making episodes, I feel like sharing knowledge. And when I'm not making episodes, that means I'm learning new knowledge. So, and the longer it takes me to come back with the new knowledge, the deeper the processing was. So like that friend and my grandma passing and all of that, like that took 3.5 months because it wasn't cheap. It wasn't easy. It was very intensive and deep, and it brought up a lot of interconnected things that needed to be processed. So I know for a fact that I understand myself better today after learning about all of these human design concepts. So I'm guessing that probably the next few episodes will be dedicated to human design. So if you're not into it, maybe go back and find an episode that you haven't listened to yet, or skip ahead to one that isn't human design related. But I'm going to be talking about that for a while because holy schmoly, it has been extremely powerful knowledge to soak up today. So I hope that this made sense. Surely with your printout in front of you, hopefully it made some sense. I know it's really fun for me to talk about, so I got to trust that. That's really my only metric. My gate of caution is, do I feel like talking about it? If yes, then do it. And if no, then don't do it. So I felt like talking, and here we are, 32 minutes later. This was so fun. Human design is so fun. You guys, there's just like so much meat on this bone to chew off and get to understand and get to integrate into everything else that I already understand about myself. It has been an absolute delight to get to work with human design today. So I will no doubt be back to share more. But until next time, dear friends, you take real good care of yourselves, and so will I.